Bonnie, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that very nice introduction. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm going to start my slides, and then I believe it's the second page, third page. You'll see a picture of me at my desk. I'm a retired elementary school principal as well, and I'll talk a little bit about my background when that slide comes up. So I'm going to share my screen, and let's see if that works. Okay, perfect. Okay, so that should be, you should see the first page. Is that the first slide? So I'm here representing PTS Coaching and Cindy Goldrich. Um, that's who I do this work for. And I met Cindy 15 years ago. I sat in one of her training sessions as a new principal and just was blown away by the information that she shared with me. And when I left her presentation, I said, you know, I really wish I had this information when I was a teacher. And I brought it back to my school. It started out, we did a parent book club with the book that she had just published at the time, which is Eight Keys to Parenting Children with ADHD. And Cindy sent a representative to my school to facilitate this book club. It was fabulous. And then a few years later, when she came out with her book for educators, and that's ADHD, Executive Function and Behavioral Challenges in the Classroom, I decided that I was going to facilitate that book club with my school. And then we kept in touch throughout the years. When I retired, I became a certified trainer through PTS Coaching to help parents coach parents with children with ADHD and also to teach teachers. And that's what I've been spending my time doing. Um, so this is Cindy. This is the first page. That's her slide. And here's me in my classroom. I am an ADHD parent coach and teacher trainer, an adjunct professor at Adelphi Hofstra and St. John's University, retired principal, former elementary school principal. And now I retired and I said, what else do I love to do? And I came right back to education and this work. And this is really what I love to do. So today I'm here so we can talk about homework. In addition to talking about homework, because that's a big topic, especially for parents of children with ADHD, I'm going to talk a little bit about what ADHD looked like in my home, um, and what it looks like as a professor in a college with freshman students, and sort of tie it all in together. I'm just wondering, I'd like to see in the chat what grade your children are. So is that a possibility to put that in the chat?
Sure, people can do that. Please.
I see. Okay, good. We have middle school, third grade, fourth grade, a lot of elementary school parents here. Thank you. A 24-year-old, that's very helpful to me, as far as just knowing what I can offer, what I can share with you. So we're talking about homework. And this is a question that we start the slides off with. When does your school teach students homework management skills? Very often, the answer is they just don't. They don't. Now I'm noticing a big effort to help children when they're leaving fifth grade, going to middle school, to make sure that they are ready for middle school. So I love that effort. That's very welcoming. Today, the topics we're going to explore are what makes it so challenging for some children, what role do and should you play as far as helping your children with homework, and what are some tools and strategies that will make homework time less stressful and more productive for your child. So when your child comes in the house, they say, "Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. I'm home." And what's the first thing that goes through your mind? I know as a parent, my first thing was, well, maybe one, who did you play with today? Who did you sit with at recess? Who did you have lunch with? And do you have homework? Um, and they're coming home so excited that they've made it through their school day. And right away the conversation is, what else, what other work can you do? So what's going on for them? Sometimes they're completely depleted from the school day, just exhausted. They've held it all in to get, they've held it in all day, and they just need to unwind. Homework is boring and it's competing with TV, with video games, with friends, with outside time. Um, yeah, it's really hard for them to come home and be excited to do homework after their school day. Homework may be hard, especially if your child is the kind of child maybe that didn't hear it all, didn't catch it all during the school day. It could be difficult for them. If your child is on medication and they held it together all day, now the medication is wearing off. And that's something that as a school principal, I've sat in on many meetings with parents who've said to me, it's exhausting in my house. When my child comes home, medication is worn off, and now I'm the bad guy, and I've got to sit and I've got to try to get them to produce more, and they're spent. It's very difficult, right? And homework takes them longer than their peers. For some, their friends might have come home, finished, and they're playing outside in front of the house, their house. But your child, it takes them a little bit longer. They're still home. They may not know what to do, what is expected, because they might have tuned out a little bit during the day. Maybe they didn't catch everything. Maybe they didn't write down everything that they were supposed to. And then they want your support, but also their independence. So we're going to talk about what your role is as a helper to them. So this is what we see, right? The result: avoidance, rushing, refusal, anxiety, anger, depression. And we want you to, we want to see the world through their eyes with a little empathy. And we want to help them. We want to give them what they need. And sometimes it's not about the homework. Sometimes it's about friends. Sometimes it's about something somebody said, a teacher said. They could be carrying a lot of things that are not letting them be as productive as they can be. So homework expectations what are the homework expectations on your child? So let's think about it. Is the amount of work reasonable given your child's profile? So if your child has a 504 plan, or if your child has an IEP, is your child getting the same, is the expectation for homework the same as all of the other children? Is the level of work reasonable for your child? Is your child expected to complete schoolwork that was unfinished during class time? And that's a big thing. And to me, that sounds unfair, right? As a principal, as a teacher, because if they could, right? We like to think that every child will do well if they can. It's not if they want to, it's not defiance, but if they can't finish their work in class because of, and we're going to talk a little bit about executive function challenges, is it fair to then send this child home with extra homework, extra work to do at home? These are conversations that have to take place in the classroom with the teacher. And then if your child has an IEP or a 504, is it being appropriately implemented? So now I want to talk a little bit about executive function. Executive functions are a set of neurologically based skills that have to do with managing oneself and resources in order to achieve a goal. It's how you do what you need to do. So I tell this to my college students: the brain is typically fully developed by about 25 to 30 years of age, except these are 18-year-olds who are making the biggest decisions of their life, and we laugh about it. But just think, your child's brain is not fully developed. Executive functions are still developing, and a child with ADHD may be as much as 30% delayed in their executive functioning skills. This can make learning and performing very difficult and very frustrating. And this is the chart that I use this chart for absolutely everything, right? These are the 8 executive functions that I talk to teachers about, I talk to parents about, I talk to my students about. So I'm going to go through them one by one, not in very big detail because we don't have that kind of time together right now. But I want you to think, if 1 is a challenge and 5 is that your child rocks at this, and this is not something that they have a problem with, just jot down for yourself, right? And then you can think about, well, if they have a problem with emotional regulation, then I'm going to have to look for tools to help them with that. Or if they have a problem with organization, with planning and organization, that's where I'm going to have to help them. So let's start with initiation and activation. Is your child a procrastinator, right? Initiation, getting started. Does your, once they get started, it's okay, but they avoid that thing that they just don't want to do, but they know they have to. So give them a score of 1 to 5. And then planning and organizing their room, planning and organizing how they write an essay for homework. It's creating and prioritizing order and structure in everything that they do. So is this something that your child struggles with? You can give them a 1 if it's a tremendous deficit, or a 5 if they're wonderful at it, or somewhere in the middle. So then we have attention, the ability to sustain focus for tasks that are challenging or uninteresting. Can they read for a long period of time? Can they listen to the teacher talking to a read aloud? Is this something that the teacher reaches out to you about and says, Jane is having a lot of trouble paying attention in school. She often stares out at the window, out in space. I'm having trouble having her attend to what I'm talking about. So is this something that your child struggles with? I'd like to say, like, these executive functions, every one of us might have difficulty in some of these areas. That doesn't mean we have ADHD. A child with ADHD is very often 3 to 5 years, 30% behind in these executive functions. Emotional regulation, managing frustration and modulating emotions. This could be a problem if your child gets frustrated and all of a sudden acts out. This could just really kill homework time. So emotional regulation, give your child a number. Self-monitoring. If they're having a hard time, do they know how to give themselves a pep talk? Do they know how to monitor and regulate their behavior and direct future actions? Can they give themselves a little, you can do this, Jane. Let's stick with it. Let's try one more. They might have your voice in their head, which is wonderful. You're the one giving them a pep talk. But if they're alone, can they do it for themselves? And working memory. Do they have difficulty keeping bits of information in their mind and applying them to a task? When they come home from school, do they remember the steps to a math word problem that they were taught over and over again so they can apply it at home? Or is this a problem for them? When you send your child up to get ready for school, at the end of the day, do they remember to pack everything they need to? So that's working memory. Processing speed is the time it takes to process and respond. In a classroom, a child with difficulty with processing speed may be the last one to answer a question. They need think time. Teachers don't often give them that. And the last executive function is flexible thinking, the ability to take feedback and adapt. So if you're helping them with a project, um, and you understand the instructions, the directions, but they think they know the right way to do it, do they give you a hard time because it's their way and they don't accept your way? Okay, so now you have a little bit of an idea of which you probably know this already, but it's a nice way to organize your thinking, where your child might need some extra help. What I do with my students and I do with my teachers, I have them fill out something called a student executive function profile. And this is what it looks like. I'm going to go to the next slide. And this is, it's just a little worksheet where you write down where and when and why you see deficits in this executive function, or maybe it's not applicable. So where you have ones and twos, you would, as a parent, I like to show this to parents because this is something when you're going to the school and you want to talk about your child, what you see at home, this is a great way to organize. So again, because this is a short workshop, and I want to get into the homework. I'm just going to show you some of the examples. So like planning and organizing. If I was Jane's parent, I would write, Jane doesn't come home with all the materials she needs to complete her homework. She often leaves her completed homework at home. Jane needs a tool. Emotional regulation. Jane gets frustrated and starts whining and complaining after doing less than half her assigned math problems. This escalates until she's unable to continue working. So maybe Jane needs to only do half of the math problems that the teacher is assigning, and it has to be agreed upon. Working memory, Jane comes home from school, and when she's working on her homework, she doesn't remember the steps she needs to follow to solve her math problems. Maybe she needs the little copy of the little poster that's up in the classroom, which lists the steps to do math problems. Maybe she needs a copy at home. Flexible thinking. Jane and I often get into arguments about how projects should be completed. I feel like she doesn't understand the directions, but she refuses to listen to my suggestions and explanations. So that's an example of flexible thinking. So I just showed this to you because this is a tool that I tell my paraprofessionals to use if they're working one-on-one with a student so that they can then, if they have to go to a meeting, they can organize their thoughts. I tell teachers the same thing. And I like to tell parents too, it's a great tool to use if you're having a conversation, parent-teacher conferences, and you want to let your teacher know what you see at home. Okay. So preparing to do homework always starts with a plan, right? Can they find what they need when they need it? And where does the time go? And do they know where to start? So later on, I'm going to show you a tool called Getting Ready to Get Started, which I've used with younger students and I'm using with my freshmen, and it is very helpful. Okay, so the power of organization. Organization frees the mind from needless efforts and thinking. So these are some ways to organize, right? Organize your computer desktop, bookmark important websites. So this is maybe for the older students. Younger students have folders, right? One folder for each of their content areas. Templates when they're reading, social studies, reading a novel. They can use a graphic organizer, where they're writing down important characters or important people and events that they need to remember, right? Here's another way to organize. You need a safe place to keep all your passwords. And I noticed that I remember the students in my school, they had passwords to all the different software that they were using for different programs in school. They were using them for some homework follow-up. They needed to keep organized. A paper agenda, a calendar, and I'll show you an example of one, right? You can see the whole week or a month or even plan a day at a time. Place for weekly to-dos. Now include appointments and obligations. When I show you a planning calendar, What I like to suggest to parents is also put fun things on that calendar too. So if it's you're plugging in your homework, you're plugging in all the non-negotiables that you have. Also put in your computer time or put in basketball time, just so that when they look at their week, they can see there's things to look forward to. Binders, notebooks, folders, but they have to be labeled, they have to be organized. Color code. And then here's a suggestion if you don't already have it. At home, keep a material caddy. Um, I don't know if your children necessarily do all their work in one spot, or if maybe they do it at the dining room table for a while, then they move to their bedroom. But if they can have a caddy to carry with them, they'll have what they need at their fingertips, which is great, which is essential. And so some materials to have on hand. These are some materials that work for children with ADHD. Not everybody needs them all, but this that you're looking at, a time timer. You may have seen it already, but I know that classroom teachers probably about 10 years ago started using something like this so that children with ADHD can see time passing. So if you tell a child, you're going to work on something for 10 minutes, children with ADHD have a very poor sense of time. But if you have it, this is called a time timer, and you can keep it right at your child's desk, they can see time passing, and it's very helpful for them. Fidgets. My family, my two daughters who are both teachers, always have fidgets at their desk when they're grading papers in their own homes. And we always tell teachers, have a basket of fidgets so it's available to everybody rather than single out the one child. And just say, if you need it, it's here for you. If you don't need it, that's fine. And here's a standing desk, which is really, really wonderful for children who have ADHD. Less confining, they can move around, and movement helps them focus. So if your child would benefit from a place to stand and do work, that's a great option for them. So this is a tape. We don't, okay, but this is music. So to share a story with you quickly, when my daughter was 14 years old, I had her evaluated for ADHD. She came back out of this evaluation, borderline, no recommendation for medication, but they told me to listen to her because she knows what she needs best. And we had been battling because the type of learner I am, the type of studier I am, is I need a clean desk and I need silence. Anything distracts me. But my daughter would be, first of all, she could not come home from school and do her work. Her work was done, her best work was done at the end of the day, after dinner. So that was one of the battles that we had after dinner with music in her head, headphones on. And so what they told me was listen to her because she knows how she learns best. When she comes home from school, she needs to unwind. She needs to go outside, see friends. She needs to take a run. And then she can come back, have dinner, and so she stays up a little bit later. That's okay for her, but don't take away her music because that's white noise to her. Her music blocks out outside interference. I learned a lot, and I kept that with me, and I share that with parents. Here's a dry erase board, which is great to have, a great tool. A privacy shield, snacks, materials, folders, just anything that your child needs to have handy. Always have them on hand. I'm going to show you something you might already know about the Pomodoro technique, but the snacks don't happen while you're doing your work. And I'll explain that a little bit later. Okay, a fresh start and some routines that work. Now, this is helpful hints, right? Let's clean our workspace up weekly. Let's do a weekly backpack dump because we know a child with ADHD, those you can tell but you open a backpack and you just see an unorganized backpack with homework from September when it's in November. So a weekly backpack dump is a great idea. And if there's something that your child needs, keep it in a folder. It doesn't have to travel with them back and forth. It could be put in a space where they might need to call it up at another time. All right. So for school, for those children who have lockers at school, I would say try to arrange maybe an early drop off so that they can clean out their locker from time to time. I don't know in middle school if this is built into the routines there. Something tells me not, no. And this is the quarterly or bi-yearly room dump. Um, you know what? We feel on top of things. Like I know I do. When I clean a closet, when I just that's a good feeling. And I think your children will feel the same way. Um, Organized, ready to start fresh the next day. And then structure, you have to have routines in place, transition spots. So have that carry-all basket where if you're on your way out, maybe that's where you keep your cell phone. If your child is an older student and brings like a place where you keep everything that you're going to need to leave the house with, right at the spot where you're transitioning out of the house. Okay, so when should homework be done? If you ask my daughter Emily, she would say after dinner, maybe after a half-hour sitcom, then she was ready for her homework. Not right for everybody. Do they need a break? Yes, sometimes when coming home from school, your children need a break. Are they well fueled? Medication, is that an issue? What other commitments do they have? And what are their peak and non-peak work times? So I think communication with your child, especially even fourth graders, fifth graders, have conversations. Let them tell you when do they work best. It's almost like when they tell you, they're making a commitment to actually do it. Excuse me. Put yourself in their place, and are these expectations realistic? So this is a daily right? The daily plan. Homework time is a great opportunity to develop management skills, not just learn, regurgitate, and perform, but to take control of your work, take control of yourself. A daily plan for how and when a work will be done creates a beginning and an end so kids can see that it can be done. Planning the time and order for doing homework helps develop executive function skills and requires active decision making. And planning also helps identify and clarify where the inherent problems may be. Do they know the expectations? Do they have the material? Do they understand the assignment? Excuse me. They have to be present to do the work, right? They can't be thinking about something else when they're sitting down to do the work. Excuse me. So having a pre-planned daily schedule for when homework will be done, even if it needs to be different every day, creates a sense of importance, priority, and structure. And this is the schedule. Now, what I do with my college students, because not only do I teach them childhood and adolescent development, but I also teach them how to be better students. So, and we do goal setting. So they have school goals and they have personal goals. And that's something you can do with your child. Set a goal for school. What do you need to accomplish? And it could be, I want to get my homework done completely and on time. All right, well, what are we going to do about it? And for yeah, and I want to have time in my day to play on my computer, play with my computer games. So maybe we can put that in as well, or to play with my dog, or to play chess with my sister. Let's put that on too. So here you've got the non-negotiables, right? We have soccer, we have a tutor, we have dinner, we have chores, we have bedtime. But if you and your child together can fill this in, depending on the age of your child, an older child can do it themselves. Let them look at the best time to do homework, the best time for their free time, the best time to play with their pets, and fill it in. When you write it down, it's almost like a contract with yourself. So this is a daily schedule, but it's really a week, right? A week at a glance. This is something that could be very helpful to your child and to you, right? Because time is like money, and there's that time timer. You can't use more than you have, right? You only have a certain amount of time in the day, and children get frustrated and unhappy if the whole day is spent being frustrated, unhappy about their homework and having no free time at all. And so, what are some time stealers? Well, if they're not working during their peak time, they're not doing their best and most efficient work, right? Social media, gaming, TV, these are all things that steal time. Not having a strategy for getting started, the story you tell yourself, right? Talking yourself out of getting your work done, and self-doubt, finding other things to do because you don't want to sit down, being hungry, and everything, right? Everything can get in the way. So you need to have a plan to take control of your time. So this is another tool, right? And this is another tool that could be used with your child. So you've got the content areas. You've got math, English, science, social studies, and language. And then you've got for each subject area, what's the homework? Do I have a quiz coming up? Do I have a test coming up? Do I have a project coming up? And an estimate on the far right is to how long do you think that this is going to take? Um, this could be very helpful to fill out and stick with. And you don't even have to use it in its entirety. If your goal is you're having difficulty with math, you just might want to work on the math piece of this. And here is some shorthand. If you have reading to do, if you have to copy notes, if you have to write, if you're studying with flashcards, you can put some abbreviations down. But I think this is something that you can work with your child to figure out how something like this could work best, but it is a good tool to use. And this is the Pomodoro technique. And this is something that I get feedback from all the time. This technique is called Pomodoro because there's a tomato-shaped timer, and pom in Italian is tomato. A pom is a unit of time. It's the time it takes to work comfortably before needing to take a break. The way I do this with my students is you work for 25 minutes, you take a 5-minute break. You work for 25 minutes, you take a 5-minute break. One more time. And then after 4 times you take a longer break, you can take a 15 or 20 or 30-minute break. But during that special time, that 25 minutes, you don't touch your phone. You don't have a snack. You've already gone to the bathroom in the last 5 minutes. If anything comes into your mind, you write it down on a Post-it. Nothing interrupts. So you start with an overall look at the work that needs to be done, and you make a plan. You actively choose the order of the work to be done with intention. So if you have 15 math problems to do, and it's going to take you 2 25-minute sessions to complete it, you write it twice. If you have to copy over an English essay, a literacy essay, and it's 25 minutes, you write it once. You plan in advance what you will do during your breaks. Things come up though. It could be I want to check my phone after 5 minutes, or I want to use the bathroom, have a quick drink. I want to pet the dog, whatever you want to do during your 5 minutes. During your Pomodoro, write down any distracting thoughts or activities to do during the break or later. Protect the Pomodoro means that's the most important thing, is 25 minutes of uninterrupted work time. Planning helps ensure that there's a sufficient amount of time allowed for the work to be completed. It also delineates your work time from your free time so you can see the impact of procrastinating or not staying on schedule. You build stamina and focus to stay connected to your work. The feedback I get with this is I have been so much more productive from using this. It is especially helpful to children who have difficulty with initiation and activation, paying attention, organization, and planning. The children that I worked with who had no trouble at all, some of them reported back that they found that 5 minutes distraction, like they could have worked through that 5 minutes. It broke their concentration. That was very few. And it was older children who did build more stamina by that time. This is what it looks like. So it's read social studies pages 22 to 30, right? So this says 15 minutes. I recommend to a little bit older children, we do 25 minutes, but 15 minutes is fine. So it's 15 minutes uninterrupted, a 5-minute break. 15 minutes, 5-minute break. And this goes on. You take a 30-minute break, then you come back until your homework is done. And then you pack up and then you check off that you've completed it and you check off that it's where it needs to be. So I don't know that your children are getting, like I saw some of you had second graders, they're not getting 2 hours and 40 minutes of homework. But if they are getting 45 minutes of homework or 30 minutes of homework, it pays to do this because they're being accountable to the time and they're looking forward to their break and they're writing down a plan. So this is called the Pomodoro technique. And I said to Ellen that I will try to find ways to get handouts to you so you can have handouts for all the things that I'm mentioning today. So where should they do their homework? How much support do they need? So then this is what I wrote. I added the I do, we do, you do. Are there any teachers here? I'm just wondering, because most teachers would know what I do, we do, you do is, and you could probably fill it out. I see we have a yes for a teacher, I believe. So I thought that this would be something that parents can do. This is the way we teach, right? This is the way we teach. Teacher says, I do it first, I model, we do it together, and now I watch you do it. So it takes away the parent feeling that the frustration and standing over a child, and why can't you do this? If it's a math problem, you do it, share your thinking, then you do it, then the next, like there's a few, right? There's 10 of them. I'm going to do one, then we're going to do one together, then you're going to do one alone. And then I'm going to watch you do another one alone. And now you are independent. So if you keep that strategy in mind, this is what we teach our student teachers. This is how we teach. The I do, the we do, you do. See if it works for you. It's not only about being independent, watching them be independent. Sometimes they need some help, right? So you're wondering, like you're figuring out how much supervision does your child need? Are they just, this is not the right time? They need somebody in their place. They can't do it. But where are they most comfortable, most productive? Independence should not necessarily be the goal. I thought that this strategy could help you. Help them plan. Okay, so they help them plan for some of the changes they face proactively. So this is something that you could fill out at any time with your child, right? Help them fill this out so that they have a plan, right? What am I going to do when I get stuck? Things that I can do when I get stuck and have them figure out, like, I can go back to look at some of, the examples we did in school, or I can look through a small textbook that I have. I could call a friend. I could ask you to help me, Mom. I can ask Dad to help me. So this is a place, and this would have to be age appropriate, but things to do when I get stuck, what I know that I can do, strategies I have, what are some online resources that might help me, and then name, phone number, and email address of people that they could reach out to. I remember when my children were growing up, we found the fax machine. Our kids were faxing homework to each other. If somebody forgot it, somebody else faxed it to them. That was quite a few years ago. Right. So this is also a tool that might help you. Okay. So this self-advocacy, right? A skill to be taught. Who should you ask for? What type of help? Your child should be able to advocate for themselves. Do they ask teachers, friends, parents, grandparents? How do they get the help? In person, by phone, by email, Zoom. Don't panic if you don't know something. Let's always have a plan on how to get you help. Here are some general tips, right? So now keyboarding skills, right? If handwriting is difficult, keyboarding skills, so your child can type essays, type answers, that's very helpful for some children. Organization on a computer, right? Folders, favorite sites, templates. Here it says we have charts for grammar and spelling, and I had recommended charts for solving math problems as well. Copies of what they get in school, of what those posters are, those silent teachers in the classroom, if you can get copies of those and bring them home, that's very helpful. I know this makes me think every time I go through this slide, it makes me think of my younger daughter. She she is an auditory learner. When she was younger, I would say, let's study for a test. And she would say, let's reread the chapter together. She needed to hear it. She also had a best friend come home with her who was every day from school for all of elementary school. And her best friend used to read her like the chapter for social studies if it wasn't me when they were studying together. It helped her friend. And now that my daughter's a doctoral student and she still listens, she's a doctoral student. She happens to be doing her dissertation, and I wrote it down so I'd remember to tell you. Social, emotional, and academic benefits of early diagnosis for women with inattentive ADHD. She was diagnosed in her late 20s, and she learns best by listening to her work. So she has this accommodation in college. She does it on her own now. Think about that for your child. Does your child need to listen? Then readwritethink.org is a place where you can go to help with graphic organizers for reading, during long reading where you can take notes. And I have one to send you as well. And here's two sites that have books on tape. Making learning active and interactive. And then if your child is doing everything they should be, give them a small reward. Shoot 3 hoops, do 2 pieces on a puzzle, something small as a small reward. Maybe that's what they want to do during their 5-minute break if they're using the Pomodoro technique. This is a reflection, right? This is a tool to help with reflecting on what works and what doesn't. What did I do to prepare for an exam that worked really well? What did I do that wasn't working well? What could I have done but forgot or didn't think of until it was too late? And what I can do throughout the term term to prepare for tests. So this is another tool that could be very helpful to you and your child. I just use this with my students, and I think that this could help if your child is a procrastinator, and there's some big assignment coming up. This is a great way to get started. Getting ready to get started. Think about what you are being asked to do and write the answers to these 4 questions in advance. What's the name of the assignment? So this is like a big project. What materials do I need? Gather the materials. Where will I do the work? Choose a workspace. What questions do I have before I begin? Get clarification if you have questions. And when will I begin the work? Write it down and stick to it. So this doesn't have to be used for everyday homework, but if you've got that big project that's being put off and the due date is coming closer, this is a great way to get started, and then make your plan how to go from there. This is also a tool that I got really good feedback from, saying that, well, once I wrote it down, I didn't want to have to redo it because so I made sure I got started. And another response was, I think, it worked really well. I'm going to use it more often than I thought I was. Like once they did it, they were happy with it. So what role are you playing in supporting and or supervising homework? So remember the I do, we do, you do. Are you enabling? What's enabling versus supporting? So an example that I like to give for what is enabling versus supporting. So you're enabling. Think about that violin that gets left home, or whatever musical instrument, if it gets left home, but every Tuesday and Thursday, or maybe it makes it there one Tuesday but not both. So you're enabling your child if you're bringing that instrument to school, but you're supporting that child by putting a Post-it on the door before they leave that says, if it's Tuesday or Thursday, you need your violin. So we want to support. So think about yourself and your time, right? What conditions are you willing to help? Have they tried independently? Did they ask for your help appropriately? Because you don't want to respond to a scream of frustration. You want your child to know that you can help them come to me before you're frustrated. Are they expecting you to do the homework for them? Maybe, but what you're going to do is you're going to do one, you're going to do one together, you're going to do the rest independently. They're going to do the rest independently. And also time. If your child is expecting you to help them, then it has to be at a time that's convenient for you. It can't be when you're about to cook dinner. It can't be when you have another commitment with somebody else, with another sibling. Are you willing and available to be present? That you're going to choose a time that you are. Do they know your schedule in advance? Can they rely when they can rely on you? So I think that's a good idea if you have a homework issue with your child, to let them know in advance, right? They're putting their schedule together. They're filling out a weekly plan. Let them know your best time to help them. And here are some helpful mantras for your child, right? I can recognize the distraction and let it go. I will respect the timer. Procrastinating means loss of free time. Don't change the plan that I made when I was calm. And start from wherever you are with whatever you have. There's no wrong time, no wrong place. And sometimes if things are too crazy, it's time for a quiet time. It helps everybody recharge. Consider carving out a time of day where everyone shuts off from the outside world, just for talk, just for reflecting on the day. And this is called the reset. I don't want to keep nagging or fighting. I am concerned about how things are going. It's not serving either one of us well. Let's try a new approach together. So this is the together time. And in one of Cindy Goldrich's presentations, she talks about, I'm not going to attend every fight I'm invited to. So if your child is really belligerent because of homework, you have to stay calm. If they're looking for an argument, you don't have to attend that argument. You stay calm. So if you're going to have an agreement together about homework, what should it cover? Right? You're going to talk about your role. You're going to talk about, this is important too, your role in verifying work completion, because we want to make sure that they have everything done. What will happen if it's not done, right? So if you have these conversations before, everybody knows what's to expect. A plan for making a written weekly schedule, including the activities, we talked about that, personal obligations, parent commitments, and then review and reevaluate the plan every 2 months until you're satisfied that everything runs smoothly. So just these 4 bullet points alone could help. Like it's a good place to start tomorrow. I see that. I know that this is very similar to what I asked you to do at the beginning, to notice the executive function skills and where your child was. But this is something, and I could send this to you. It's where you look at all of these performances, right? Writing papers, note-taking, study skills, organization, and you give a number. So what are you really good at? Gets a 5, not so good at a 1. And then there's a rule. You may not have the same value more than 2 times on the wheel. So this is also something good to do with your child. Talk about what you see, talk about how they feel, and complete this. An older child might be able to do it by themselves. But this is a good talking point, and then a plan from there. Never let your relationship suffer at the altar of homework. You are the ally, not the enemy. They have some of your children might have tough times in school, and they come home, and this is their peace. Keep it calm and give time for change to happen. You can seek help from others, which you are. You're here with Chad and going to talks. Parent the child you have. Don't compare your child to other children. If you're helping your child with their homework, it doesn't matter that another mom says, "Oh, I don't have to do a thing. My child is completely independent." You have to parent the child that you have. So these are other resources. You see a picture of the 2 books that I mentioned, 8 Keys to Parenting Children with ADHD. That was the first book that I did that my teachers and parents did for a book club. And then the second has all the tools, a lot of the tools that we talked about today. It's challenges in the classroom, but it's great for parents as well. Those are Cindy's 2 books. And Cindy also has a Common Connected workshop that she does. So if anybody was interested, she does a 7-session parent workshop series, and her email is cindy@ptscoaching.com. I have copies of the slides for everybody. So it'll be 6 on a page. You'll get a copy of the presentation. And that's the last slide. I'm going to unshare, and I'm going to see if anybody has questions for me.
So just to add to what you're saying, we will post the video online. So anyone who missed a part of it or wants to review it, is welcome to do that. And usually we do it within 24 to 48 hours. Okay, so questions. How do you do all this?
Start
Um,
small, that's what I would say.
my question is, my daughter has ADHD, but the issue is she's also dyslexic. So it's been a real struggle because the school will not even acknowledge the dyslexia. So actually in the process of going to due process with her school. And it just takes so much time. You know, she's in fourth grade, she's struggling with reading, she's struggling with math. We've had two independent evaluations. So I'm trying to do the homework that they send her, but it can take like an hour to 2 hours. And I feel for a child in fourth grade, that's a lot of time to be doing homework. I mean, I don't know if that's just too much. You know, I'm not in agreement with the school, which is why we're going into due
Right.
process, because they have not provided her with the tools, having two independent evaluations separately stating that, she needs a dyslexic teacher, which they cannot provide. So as a parent I see she's struggling and I know she can do certain things but it's also hard because I'm trying to at least do the homework they're sending, but 2 hours I feel is a lot,
So
it's a lot of.
does she have extra support in reading? Just like AIS services?
So what is AI services?
Yeah, it's probably RTI. It's called different things in different places, but it's just a reading teacher who would pull her out for extra services, but it's not um for children who've been classified. So your daughter doesn't have an IEP, does she?
She does have an IEP.
Oh, she does. So
She
does
does.
she have resource room?
She is in a resource room, but they're not providing her with the services she needs. I've had an advocate sit in a meeting
Mm.
with me and speak to them, and everything we've asked for has always been denied. We cannot get them to budge on anything, which is why we're at the process now of due process. But I also am trying to get her into good study habits, which is very hard when, the child is struggling just to get her to do homework, when she knows now in fourth grade that she's really behind in reading. She knows it. Like I don't have to tell her because she could compare herself to her peers. So my struggle is, trying to get her in rhythm to do homework because, multiplication, she loves doing. Addition, she loves doing. She hates doing subtraction because the regrouping is a struggle for her. Because multiplication, she can get it because she just memorizes it.
Have you spent time with the resource room teacher? Because they're always the experts in the building that can help you, that have tools to help you.
I've reached out to other parents. Our school district is really not a good school district if you have children with special needs. I reached out to other parents that had to go through the court system. It's just not. We live in a very small town, so we live in a town that's very small. And what I've learned is some of these small towns, when they're very small, just don't have the, adequate resources, and it's a real struggle. Because
So
I've even not reached out to the state of New Jersey to do an investigation because it's very frustrating because as a parent, you want the best for your child and
of
they're not
course.
getting it to the point that, I have to go to court. It's very expensive. You're paying an attorney to, just to get the services your child needs.
So I don't give up,
No,
right?
I'm not. Trust
Right?
me, the amount of money we already spent, I'm not. But I'm just trying to find a way to help her just to get in habit. Because some of the things that you stated I thought were really good. I never even thought about having a standing desk. I know some people did that, a desk they can stand because she is very fidgety. Um, that is something that's gotten better because I did send something for her in school and she was like, well, you didn't email the teacher. She said, I can't use it. So that was, I was a little bit upset about that because I'm like, she knows she's fidgety. She needs something to hold her hands and she wouldn't let her use. I had to email her to ask her to let her to use it. So when you said that, teachers, and this is in the resource room, this is not in the, so when you stated that, that kind of made me upset that you're saying for, to have this in a room so kids wouldn't be feel different to be in a resource room and the teacher is saying no.
The school that I came from, we had kinesthetic furniture in every classroom. We had pedal desks. We had stand-up desks. Some children needed them all the time, and some children just cycled in. So nobody, if you were sitting at a pedal desk, you were sitting there either because you were cycling in or because you really truly needed it, but we didn't want that child to feel left out. So there were two. Not left out, singled out, I'm sorry. But standing desks shouldn't cost money because a lot of times you can just lengthen because pedal desks are expensive. You can lengthen the legs so that a regular desk becomes a standing desk. And even if there's one in the back of a classroom, it's not too much to ask. When the child needs it, they go back to it. And when they don't need it, they're ready to come back. They come back and sit at their own desk.
I would say another option there that I employed in the classroom was adjusting desks to taller and then getting bar stools. If you don't have extra desks.
Right.
I just wanted to jump in on the homework issue. You were saying it takes like 2 hours. That could be, if you don't already do this, it could be a really good spot to use the time timer and to use the Pomodoro method. So she knows, she sees what 15 minutes is. If she can sit for 15 minutes, you watch her and decide how long she can sit for. And that's the amount of time that you sit for. Like I can tell you, my son could sit and do math for 15 minutes. At minute 16, his head would explode. So we literally, it was like clockwork. So we would do math for 14 minutes and then we would take a break. And then we would come back and do some more. So that may be something that you could do. If you notice how long she can do and it's different for different subjects. And then you take your break and you come back. And the break is something that, you can lose them on a break and it's hard for them to come back, right? So it's something where it's engaging, it's time with you, or it's something that is planning really is really key here. Planning for what this break is, when the start and when the finish of it is. So then they can come back, but that may be helpful.
So we have used a timer, and I think what you just said was probably the issue I'm having is we do use a timer and the timer is very helpful, but I think what you just said is what to do during that break. And I tend to let her, she loves music, so I'll let her use Alexa, but then when it's time to get off the break, it's always hard to get back on track.
That's part of the discussion. Before you take, when you talk about the breaks, before you do the breaks, right? Before you sit down and say, we're going to try this, see if this is helpful to you, right? How are you this is a conversation with them to allow her to take ownership and have autonomy and feel some control of herself and not feel out of control. When we take this break, how are you going to bring yourself back? What tools are you going to use to be able to walk away from it and come back to the homework? So these are conversations to allow her some autonomy, so she can help herself. And she has answers within herself, oh, this would help me come back. Things that you can't figure out because you're not in her head, right? So ask her the questions and allow her to give the suggestions.
Tony, thank you. Thank you so much. I just want to make sure we have enough time because Aziz has his hand raised. And I'm sure he has a question as well.
Thank you. I was just going to mention regarding that last comment, maybe let your daughter listen to music doing the homework. I mean, my son tends to do that, much to my dislike, but that might be effective for him. But my question was, I have a freshman at a very competitive high school, and he you say, well, let's make a schedule. I said, no, I don't like schedules. What do you do to break that down and get him to kind of do that kind of thing? I mean, maybe it's part of the ADHD mentality that he thinks generating the schedule is going to be a hassle. I don't know.
I would say I came home from a workshop and we were all asked to have our children try it and report back. So can you try this and give me feedback?
Right.
Just, I was very surprised that when I'm working with older children, once you get them to do it, they see how it works for them. So
yeah.
just, ask, you need this information.
Thank you. There's a lot of helpful information. Really, really appreciate it. And I like the part also about putting fun things on the schedule. Although, yeah, I think the perception probably from his point of view, this is just work to make, it's work to do the schedule, but maybe if you helped him do it.
So I told my students, if they wanted to fill out those non-negotiables, that was fine. But what I really needed them to do is put in the schoolwork piece and the personal goal piece. But then if it's a weekly schedule where things don't change that often, like, you have practice for a sports team at the same time, you have dinner at the same time, then you only have to do it once and make copies of it, and it probably won't be so tedious. It also might work better for an older student to do it on a computer, to do it, create something on the computer instead of handwrite it.
Yeah, thank you.
So it's just about that time. We usually end at 9:15. We like to leave time for questions. I imagine there's a place or a way people can get in touch with you if they want to.
Oh. So I'm going to put my email is coming, but also it'll be on the slides, and so will Cindy Goldrich. I'll have hers as well. And I do want to make sure that everybody gets the handouts that we have prepared for them. So there's my Bonnie S. Cohen, no E in Bonnie, @gmail.com.
Terrific. Thank you.